No one saw this coming, or maybe they did, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Just months after one of Hollywood's longest and most admired marriages quietly fell apart, whispers are now turning into headlines. Keith Urban, the country music superstar once seen as the steady, grounding force beside Nicole Kidman, is suddenly at the center of a new storm. Reports claim he hasn't just moved on but may have already moved in with someone new. And while Keith is reportedly starting over in Nashville, Nicole Kidman appears closer than ever to her daughters, presenting a united front that feels intentional, emotional, and deeply symbolic. This isn't just a breakup story. This is about loyalty, timing, and what happens when love unravels in the public eye. Stay with us, because the details being whispered behind closed doors paint a far more complicated picture than the headlines suggest. And before we go any further, subscribe for more fame insights. For nearly 2 decades, Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman represented something rare in celebrity culture: stability. Their relationship wasn't loud or flashy. It felt calm, mature, and deeply rooted in mutual respect. When they married in 2006, both were coming from very different emotional places. Nicole had already lived through one of Hollywood's most scrutinized divorces, while Keith was balancing fame, personal growth, and a demanding music career. Over the years, Nicole often described Keith as her safe place. Keith openly credited Nicole for giving him a sense of home he had never known before. Together, they raised their daughters, Sunday and Faith, largely away from public chaos. Red carpets showed them smiling, holding hands, whispering to each other like best friends. They were held up as proof that lasting love in Hollywood was still possible. That's why their split last summer landed so heavily. There was no dramatic announcement, no accusations, just confirmation that after 19 years they were separating. Fans were stunned not because celebrity marriages don't end, but because this one felt so solid. Behind the scenes, though, sources say cracks had been forming quietly. The couple had reportedly been living more separate lives for months before the news broke. By the time the public learned about the split, the emotional distance may have already been there for a while. And now, with rumors swirling that Keith has grown close to someone new, many are re-examining everything they thought they knew about how and when this marriage truly ended. What makes this moment even more emotional is what's happening on the other side of the story. Since the split, Nicole has been seen constantly with her daughters, not just occasionally, but everywhere. From international trips to casual family moments, the three appear inseparable, often linking arms or holding hands in ways that feel deliberate. To some, it looks like a silent message: we're sticking together. For fans watching closely, it feels less like coincidence and more like a quiet show of unity during a painful transition. According to insiders, this sudden closeness between Nicole and her daughters may be connected to what's happening in Keith Urban's personal life now. Sources claim that Keith is not only dating someone new, but that the relationship is serious enough to have changed his living situation. Some even believe they're already sharing a home. Those close to the family say that teenagers are incredibly perceptive. They feel emotional shifts before adults realize they're visible. And when teens feel protective of one parent, that support often becomes public, even if unintentionally. Observers began noticing a pattern: Nicole and the girls traveling together, attending events together, appearing more openly affectionate than ever before. Even moments Nicole once would have kept private are now being shared openly. One insider described the dynamic as feeling like against the world, not out of anger, but out of emotional closeness. Meanwhile, Keith's world looks very different. He's reportedly spending most of his time in Nashville, deeply focused on music. Sources say he's renovating a studio on Music Row and pouring himself into songwriting. The album he's working on is already being described as raw and uncomfortable, possibly reflecting the slow unraveling of his marriage rather than a single explosive moment. Music has always been Keith's way of processing life. When things get heavy, he disappears into melodies and lyrics. Friends say this project feels personal, reflective, and emotionally exposed. If released as described, it could be one of the most revealing chapters of his career. Public reaction has been mixed. Some fans argue that Keith has every right to move on, especially if the relationship ended emotionally long before it did legally. Others feel uneasy about the timing, especially with Nicole and the girls appearing so closely bonded right now. Social media hasn't helped. Every photo is analyzed, every appearance is dissected. Silence from both sides has only fueled speculation. Representatives for Keith and the woman he's rumored to be involved with have declined to comment, leaving room for assumptions to grow. What's important to note is that there have been no allegations of wrongdoing. Multiple sources stress there's no suggestion of overlap or betrayal. Still, in the court of public opinion, perception often matters more than facts. Adding another layer is how quickly and quietly the divorce itself was finalized. There were no prolonged legal battles, no financial warfare, no public custody dispute. Everything was handled swiftly. Both parties waived spousal and child support, suggesting a mutual decision rather than a hostile breakup. That calm legal ending stands in sharp contrast to the emotional complexity now playing out in public. Experts say what we're seeing is not uncommon when long marriages end. Emotional separation often begins far earlier than physical separation. By the time the public becomes aware, one partner may already be ready to move forward, while the other is still grieving the loss of the shared life they built. Psychologists note that children, especially teenagers, tend to gravitate toward the parent who feels more emotionally present during times of change. That doesn't mean rejection of the other parent. It's about comfort, stability, and familiarity during uncertainty. Professionally, both Keith and Nicole are moving forward in very different ways. Nicole continues to thrive, with projects lined up and her reputation as one of Hollywood's most respected actresses firmly intact. Her image right now feels strong, maternal, and resilient. Keith, on the other hand, appears to be entering a more introspective phase. If his upcoming music reflects heartbreak and reflection, it may resonate deeply with fans who followed him through every era of his life. Some of the most powerful albums in music history were born from moments exactly like this. This situation has drawn comparisons to other high-profile splits where one partner appeared to move on faster than the other. Time and again, we've seen artists channel pain into creativity while their former partners lean into family and grounding routines. What sets this story apart is the lack of public bitterness. No interviews pointing fingers, no dramatic statements, just quiet choices unfolding under intense scrutiny. At its core, this story isn't about choosing sides. It's about understanding that even the strongest relationships can reach a point where staying hurts more than leaving. Two people can love each other deeply and still realize they can't continue in the same way. Whether Keith's new relationship lasts or fades with time remains to be seen. Whether Nicole's visible closeness with her daughters is a temporary phase or a lasting shift is also unknown. What is clear is that this chapter marks a profound change for everyone involved. After nearly 20 years, a shared life has been divided into separate futures. Healing doesn't look the same for everyone, and moving on rarely follows a neat timeline. Sometimes, the quiet endings are the hardest. They leave space for reflection, for unanswered questions, and for the small, private moments that outsiders will never see. In the silence, both Keith and Nicole are rewriting their own stories, learning who they are outside the roles they've held for nearly 2 decades. It's a reminder that endings don't always come with fanfare. Sometimes, they come softly, and the real work begins in that stillness. Sometimes the quiet endings are the hardest. They leave space for reflection, for unanswered questions, and for the small, private moments that outsiders will never see. In the silence, both Keith and Nicole are rewriting their own stories, learning who they are outside the roles they've held for nearly 2 decades. It's a reminder that endings don't always come with fanfare. Sometimes, they come softly, and the real work begins in that stillness. Away from the headlines and speculation, there are ordinary days filled with adjustment, emotion and reality setting in. There are habits to unlearn, routines to reshape, and memories that surface at unexpected times. What once felt permanent now exists as chapters already written, while the next pages remain blank and uncertain. For Keith, that may mean finding comfort in music,